So what is experience design? I think in the digital age, many of you have heard about user experience designers, user interface designers, more commonly known as UX and UI designers. But UX and UI commonly focuses on the digital end product of consumers, where experience consulting looks at the customer value chain from awareness, engagement, conversion, retention, hopefully never exit, but loyalty. So if we were to dissect the words experience design, let's look at each individually. Experience, they can be physical, digital, or mixed. Us engaging in this room over the course of the day is a fantastic example of a physical experience. When you go home later and get onto your TikTok or your favorite social media app or your banking app, that is a good example of a digital experience. And then ordering your groceries online and getting them delivered is a fantastic way to look at mixed experiences. If we take the word design, I'm sure we've all heard of fashion designers, brand designers, web designers. So in essence, when we take experience and design together, we create a framework of how to systematically create experiences, products, services, company policies for customers, employees, and leadership. Now, I say those three stakeholders because for a very long time, the focus has been on customer experience. But who builds these experiences? Who maintains them? Who invests in them? And who wants to know what is happening in each of the projects? Your employees and your leadership. So it's utterly important whenever we're looking at experiences, we need to look at it through the three lenses of customer, employee, and leadership. And there's a secret fourth one of oneself, but I'll unpack that a little bit later for you. Why is customer experience important when creating an endeavor? Because a great experience increases retention, it increases loyalty, and it's a differentiator between you and your competitors. And my personal favorite one is it enables you and empowers you to be able to influence the way your customers, your employees, and your leadership think through the use of behavioral science. Now, I'd like to bring this to life and tell you a bit of why it's important to bring in different perspectives for experience design. I've got lawyers in my team, I've got Olympians in my team, I've got people with masters in behavioral science, and we bring together those different perspectives in order to solve problems. Now, there's a story which my lecturer for digital operations used to refer to quite a lot, and it was about a pharmaceutical company that was creating products, sending them off to clients, but some of those boxes were going out empty, so they'd have to be returned. Now, I think we can all understand the financial impact of sending something out, bringing it back, and then having to send it again to your client. They brought in a bunch of fancy consultants. I am one, so I can say that. And in essence, after a few days of planning and working together, they came up with a fantastic solution that no box would be able to leave the factory empty. A foreman on the ground walked up to the conveyor belt, put a fan at the end of it, and they started blowing off empty boxes. Same challenge, different outcome because of the different perspectives that were brought in. Now, why is that important? All our life experiences are completely different. The way we work, where we habitat, where we engage in social activity are slightly different to the next person next to you. So in essence, it's always important to bring in different perspectives when creating an experience, a product, or a service. If experiences are everything around us and they touch everyone, how can you actually design it? Now, there's a general agreed upon approach when designing experiences. But if you start to research some of the frameworks, you'll see that you'll find models that have 5, 10, 7 steps. But I'm going to focus on the main 5 steps, which are discover, ideate, prototype, test, and iterate. Now, in step 1 of discover, what do? We take in as much data as possible, whether it's reading an integrated report, whether it's doing mystery shopping to understand the customer, whether it's reading research on the industry itself. And we take that data, and this is where empathy and behavioral science becomes very important. We want to understand what is the customer, the employee, or the leadership's needs. And more importantly, in today's times, their expectations, their aspirations, their fear. And it's an important part of the process because once we've got these insights, we then start to frame what our problem statement is in a way that it can be addressed. We take that problem statement and we go to step number 2, which is ideate. And in the ideation stage, this is really where the brainstorming happens. We've got all this data, we try to put it together to understand what exactly this client wants. It's at this stage that we're asking ourselves the question of how might we? How might we increase sales? How might we increase staff retention? How might we decrease the cost of converting sales and obviously reducing the cost of servicing our clients? Now, when we have this framework and this problem statement and all these ideas that we've looked at in step 1 and in step 2, we reach a beautiful stage called step 3, which is prototyping. Now, at this stage, I want to apologize to some of my colleagues in the UX and UI field because I know the field has enhanced and has gone further than just design. There's research, there's analysis. But for the purpose of this conversation, we are going to refer to them as our UX and our UI designers. And it's at this stage that they will take those solutions that we thought about in the second step of ideate and put a prototype. Now, a prototype can happen in many forms. I've been part of a group where they acted out what they wanted to do for an elderly wing at an airport. It can come in the form of wireframes, which are basic sketches that get given to IT so that they can understand what the story is that you're trying to tell. And then my personal favorite one is high fidelity prototypes. These are basically a mock-up of what the experience would look like on a digital platform. It's at this stage we haven't invested in IT build, and the effort from the organization is still minimal because it's a brainstorming and the level of effort that is required is basically a few people to tell that story. And then we take it to step 4, which is test. Now, who are we building this for? What are we creating the experiences for? We are creating them for our customers, our employees, and our leaders. So we need to test with them, right, before we start building this. And it's an utterly important stage of experience design because it's at this stage that we dispel or validate a number of the ideas that were formed before. And we take these validations or dispels and we take them into the first step, which is iterate. Now, the fifth step is the first step, but it's also a foundation of experience design. Experience design is iterative by nature. So even though you've followed the process and you've come out with a solution, take what you've learned from the test and redo the whole framework again. And that way you're refining your problem statement. You are refining what your solution should look like. But after getting your final product or your service, it's not over, right? I'd like to think that most of us change during our life, for the better, of course, right? Whether it's a life stage, whether it's a crisis, whether it's social macroeconomic shifts. I mean, if you look at COVID, how many organizations truly shifted the way they engage with their customers, how they treat their employees, and how they engage with leadership after COVID-19? It's utterly important to redo this every now and then with your service, with your product, in order to maintain your relevance with your stakeholders. To bring this to life, I always use this example of the pharmaceutical companies. Data's great, right? That's the first step. It's about gathering all the data. Now, in this room, I see many males, so I'm going to use this example. Toiletries for men are usually white, blue, and or green. Why is that? That's what the data says. The behavioral science tells us it makes us feel fresh. It makes us feel clean. Soap does not need to foam in order to clean you, but the cosmetic companies have understood the behavioral science behind the foaming of the soap. So we take these insights and we wrap a brand message. You've got to know your people. You've got to know who you're trying to engage. What are their needs? What are their aspirations? What is the message that you're trying to land and how? If you're going for Gen Zs, why are you putting the message on LinkedIn? It should be on TikTok. Those are the learnings that you get through experience design and ensuring that you're trying to get the message out to the right crowd. And then you prototype that and you test it. And hopefully you've come out with a solution which is sustainable and that is relevant to your customers, your employees, and your leaders. Now, my favorite part about experience design is that it's all about material business outcomes. The only code that I know is the one that opens my phone. My high school subjects were maths, science, accounting, and a few languages. So I've got no natural creativity in me at all. And I want to give you this example because you don't need to be a coder to be able to do experience design. You don't need any natural creative ability to do so. Although we will need great creators and great designers on the way, it's all about the material business outcomes and sustaining them. So much so that there's even a formula to calculate your return on investment. It's about the return that you created through putting this investment together, divided by the cost of investment of actually getting the solution out to the market. To really bring it home, a great experience is important, and terrible experiences take away from great products. I was in the insurance industry for close to 10 years, and I saw it many times. A terrible claims experience would distract a customer from the great benefits that they would get. Another colleague of mine worked with a dentist in a practice, and they did experience design within the practice to try and understand, why are people scared of going to the dentist? What is it that she can do, whether it's lighting, whether it's positioning of flowers, entrance walkways, in order to create a better experience for people going to the dentist. And I really want to encourage you to dive into experience design. There's many platforms that you could learn from the Interactive Design Foundation that gives you material on how to go about doing experience design. There's fantastic communities on the Interactive Design Foundation that you can talk to and ask questions when you do get stuck with a problem. But again, no matter how many textbooks you read when it comes to experience design, you really pick up the skill when you dive in and start to do the work yourself. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I deliberately applied experience design to my life. But in hindsight, having done it for close to 12 years, I realized how encoded it was in me. After the 10 years that I'd spent in the insurance industry, I asked myself, is this what I really want? And the answer was no. Not that I didn't want insurance, but I wanted to see what else was out there. So I took my data, which was my qualifications, my experience, my connections, and I asked myself, where is the gap to where I want to be? I want to be able to see different industries and how they create the experiences instead of just financial services. So I took that data, I knew what I needed to do. I needed to get my master's in digital. I needed to open myself up to working in consulting because that was one of the industries that would take me in with the experience I had. And once I did that, I started to put in my brand. How do I want people to experience me? How do I want them to remember me once we've had conversations? And I started to test it with recruiters, with HR agents, and the final product is what you see in front of you today. Now, again, it wasn't deliberate. I have to state that. But it's a great way of going about designing your life and enhancing where you want to be as well in the future. In closing, I'm going to use some great fancy consulting words. You know, relevance is the new normal. And now it's utterly important to continue reinventing yourself because of different threats, from unanticipated arrivals, from technology developments, and from just broad socio-economic shifts. And experience design gives you the tools that will enable you to be able to continue to stay relevant to both your customers, your employees, and your leadership. I hope I've given you enough to want to go and explore this topic a little bit more. And take it back to your practices, take it back to your customers, take it back to your employees, and try to see how you can use it in your own life. I thank you. Whew.